I think we're going to get started. So good afternoon. Welcome to our National ACE Press and Community Briefing. My name's Karen Eng, and it's my pleasure to serve as the chairwoman of National ACE, as well as your moderator on today's call. The purpose of today's briefing is to share the latest details pertaining to the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, the CARES Act, and introduce you to a new national source that will connect our Asian American and Pacific Islander community with resources offered by our federal government in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The core of National ACE's mission is to serve as a strong advocate of AAPI business interests. For almost 8 years, we have built relationships throughout our national community, and during this time, National ACE is taking the lead to connect our AAPI community with federal resources. So during this current challenging time, it's understandable that people may feel confused and uncertain about the future. To move forward effectively, it is important to get accurate information from our government, business, and community leaders. So please allow me to take a moment to thank our federal, chamber, and industry partners, along with our national staff. First, our President and CEO, Ms. Chiling Tong, our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Daniel Oliver, Associate Ms. Michelle Im, our dedicated board members, and our consultants and volunteers, Ms. Jani Lau, Mr. George Moy, Mr. LJ Furman, Mr. Scott Shima, and Mr. Adam Litzer. With the support of our consultants, staff, and volunteers, National ACE created a special website to make the process easier for small businesses and entrepreneurs. This website is acesmallbusiness.org, and it's still continually being developed, and we will be posting the latest information when it becomes available to us. Today, we are honored to have Congresswoman Judy Chu, Congressman Steve Chabot, National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency, Mr. Childs II, Regional Administrator of the Small Business Administration, Mr. Steve Bolger, who are on the front lines in assisting individuals and businesses during this pandemic. So they're going to share the latest information. We are also glad to have all of our media and community partners on the call today to help us get the message out to our AAPI community. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Congresswoman Chu from California. She is the chair of Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, CAPAC, and she is also the chair of the Subcommittee on Investigations, Oversight, and Regulations, and also the House Small Business Community. Congresswoman will talk about the CARES Act and its importance to so many businesses. Hi, Congresswoman Chu.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, for organizing today's virtual press conference. Coronavirus may have us all staying at home, but it's so important to be able to continue to update our business community. That's why I knew I had to join today, and that's why I'm so appreciative of ACE's incredible new website to provide resources and updates for Asian American and Pacific Islander businesses that have been devastated by the impact of this global pandemic. And I want to applaud ACE for translating many of the materials on their website into AAPI languages in order to make sure that our businesses have access to the critical resources that they need. This is a truly tumultuous time for our country, especially the business community, which has been put on an unprecedented hold. The pause is a sacrifice that we've asked of our businesses, big and small, in order to contain the spread of coronavirus. But it's coming at a high cost. Employers are forced to let staff go, close locations, or risk closing up entirely. Now, one of the first things we did was to pass a bill. This was our first bill to support our small businesses. Our first economic stimulus bill was passed on March 3rd, and it established the Economic Injury Disaster Loans Program. This bill provided $1.2 billion in credit to the Small Business Administration, which the SBA could then use to support almost $8 billion in loans. Each small business is eligible for up to $2 million in loans at an interest rate of 3.75% with a 1-year standard deferral for repayment. These loans kick in once a governor declares a state of emergency, which has now been done in all 50 states. And approval for these loans can take 2 to 3 weeks with another 5 or so days for the money to arrive. So I encourage you to act quickly to take advantage of this program. But we know that's not enough to help our economy weather the storm. And that's why at the end of March, we took further action and passed the CARES Act, HR 748, the largest relief bill in history. This $2.2 trillion relief package will extend unemployment benefits and provide direct cash assistance to help workers through this time. But it also includes additional funding for businesses. For instance, there's an additional $10 billion for the EIDL program intended to provide small businesses with a grant of $10,000 within just 3 days of applying. And for businesses who have an existing 7A, 504, or microloan from the SBA, this bill provides $17 billion to cover 6 months of loan payments. Now, I know that you've heard a lot recently about the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP program, which started on Friday. The CARES Act authorized $350 billion for this program to provide small businesses with no-fee SBA 7A loans up to $10 million with a maximum interest rate of 4%. The important thing is that the loans are forgivable for up to 8 weeks, provided the business retains its employees and maintains their salary levels. And the bill is retroactive from February 15th, so that workers could be rehired. In addition, the funds can be used to pay utilities, rent, and mortgage interest with no collateral requirement. Principal and interest repayment would be deferred for up to 1 year, and the bill would direct the SBA to prioritize underserved borrowers, including rural businesses and those owned by minorities, women, and veterans. And the PPP expands loans beyond SBA's typical constituency to include 501c3 nonprofits, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and franchisees. But the rollout on Friday was less than desirable. When we created this program, we intended for SBA to distribute the loans through its existing network of certified 7A lenders. But on Friday, the expansion was to nearly all lending institutions in the country without establishing guardrails and rules. As a result, there was a lot of confusion. Over the weekend, since this program launched, we heard countless examples of big banks restricting applications to their existing customers and setting other frustrating barriers. But our intent was clear. This program must be quick, easy, and accessible for all struggling small businesses. So as chair of the Small Business Committee's Subcommittee on Oversight, I am definitely looking into this. I've heard your concerns, and it is my top priority to make sure that this program works for everyone. I also believe that considering the demand in just 2 days, that the $350 billion will run out soon. And that is why I think we must go to a fourth stimulus bill that will address this need. Since so many small businesses are started by immigrants, there's another provision that I felt was very important, that these resources are available in multiple languages and not just English. This is especially important for AAPIs because over 1/3 of our community is limited English proficient. And that's why I authored language that was included in the CARES Act to provide SBA with $25 million to make their materials and services available in the 10 most commonly spoken non-English languages, including Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, and Japanese. We are still waiting on SBA to follow through on these translations, but we will continue to push to make sure that AAPI business owners can get the assistance they need as soon as possible. There still is so much more to do. We are beginning the process of writing a fourth economic stimulus recovery bill. And while details are still being worked out, I feel it's so important to help businesses survive this pandemic and get ready to get back on their feet. And I welcome your input into this process. So thank you again for inviting me onto today's call and for all that you are doing to support AAPI businesses.
Thank you, Congresswoman Chu. I would now like to invite Congressman Steve Chabot from Ohio. Congressman Chabot is a ranking member of the House Small Business Committee. Congressman, can you please offer some brief remarks about the CARES Act and what this means to the small business community?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak with all those folks on the line today. And I want to thank Judy Chu for giving a tremendous comprehensive outlook on the legislation that Congress passed and how it can affect small businesses all across the country. So I won't repeat everything that Judy just said. I'll just maybe touch on some of the highlights so we'll have time to open it up for some questions. The CARES Act was actually the third bill that Congress passed dealing with this coronavirus emergency situation that we're all facing in America and really worldwide. It was $2.2 trillion. It's referred to as phase 3, and a portion of that was the Paycheck Protection Program. That was the approximately $350 billion that is focused on helping America's small businesses, both profits and nonprofits as well. A number of nonprofits are also included in there. And America's small businesses are absolutely critical to the American economy. About 70% of the new jobs created in America are created by America's small businesses. About half the people who work in America work for a small business, and they're hurting. No question about that, all over the country. And this is through no fault of their own. That's something that I want to emphasize. This wasn't a business decision that anybody made or anything that someone could be second guessed on. This is something that's facing our nation and facing countries across the globe. And so much of their fact that they're shuttered, they're closed, is it's certainly not their fault. It was governmental action, principally by the states who required people, non-essential people, not to come to work, for example. So for the most part, this is governmental action in response, appropriately in response to an emergency situation that's happening here and all over the world. So this $350 billion, my advice to those small business people that are interested in getting this is act quickly. Who do you contact? You contact your local bank, your local credit union, for example. I wouldn't waste the time trying to contact the SBA. You can contact your member of Congress. They can give you information and advice as well. But your first call ought to be to your local banker. Now, if you already have a relationship with that bank, that's fine. And we heard some stories from last Friday that there were some banks that were saying, hey, if you're not a customer already, we just don't have time for you. And there are some that have made that decision. They are trying in general to service their customers first, and then they very likely would take in other folks. So if you already have a relationship, I would say that's who you ought to go to immediately. And as Judy said, the loans can be up to $10 million or 2.5 times your payroll. And the loan that you get is forgivable as long as that money is used for payroll, rent, mortgage interest, or utilities. And 75% of it has to be for parole in order to get a complete forgiveness. And this is for 8 weeks. And the payments don't have to start for 6 months. So the payments are deferred on all SBA loan programs for 6 months. These are for small businesses under 500 employees in general. That's the limit for those. The interest rate is 1%. Originally, when Congress passed it, we said not more than 4% would be the interest rate for those loans. And last week, I was Monday or Tuesday, they came out and said, at this point, we're going to make them 0.5%. So half of 1% is what they said. By the end of the week, They had gotten so many complaints from the banks that we're not going to do these loans at that lower rate. They compromised and made them at 1%. So that's what they are at this time. They're 1%. They're guaranteed by the government, by the federal government, 100% guaranteed. Normally, small business loans, there's a percentage of them that's guaranteed, but not the entire thing. But we're guaranteeing those completely. And there are some other programs, and Judy covered these very well, the emergency EIDLs and those types of things. But the big one, the main one that people are talking right now is the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. And I think what Judy said is also absolutely accurate. She mentioned that if we, Congress can go back and replenish the funding. Obviously, it has to be bipartisan. Judy's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. So we're actually seeing bipartisanship in Washington. Yes, it can exist. And right now we're working together, although Judy and I have a tendency to work together. We've been on the Small Business Committee together for a long time. And that particular committee, it really is a very bipartisan committee. But the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin last Friday said, I have a high degree of confidence that the administration, will favor that and that there will be more money available. So, but I would act now, I wouldn't wait. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Congressman Chabot. At this time, we're going to ask a couple questions. You guys have been wonderful. Both congressmen have been wonderful in addressing some of the questions that we know our small business owners and entrepreneurs have. So one of the questions that we wanted to talk about is, do you know when to anticipate the fund to get out to the small businesses?
I'll take that if you'd like. We're hoping that this is going to be expeditious. It's going to be as quick as possible. Now there are, about the direct payments. I'm sure we really haven't talked about that. $1,200, or if you're a couple, 24 plus $500. Those are direct payments. Those are supposed to go out in 2 weeks, something like that. I think is what most are anticipating. These particular loans, they started last Friday. Those were the very first one. It's $350 billion. There was a little over $5 billion that went out. Now, as Judy mentioned, there were a lot of challenges that the SBA, the Small Business Administration, had in implementing. Congress just passed this on Friday and then opened up the program the following Friday. So 1 week's time, that's like lightning speed in government time. So there were some bugs. They're getting better. They're better today than they were Friday. They're going to be better tomorrow than they are today, and so on. So there are a number of bugs that need to be smoothed out, and I feel confident they will be doing that in the very near future. But relative to the funding, I feel confident that the money will be there and will be going out expeditiously. You're probably looking at a couple of weeks, in my view. Thank you.
Congresswoman Chu, can you answer this question about the lenders limiting applications to their own business customers? And if you know if the Asian small businesses can apply for the PPP if the lenders limit their applications?
Well, we want to make sure that the banks open up their doors to everybody. But also, I think that there are lenders that are very, very eager to participate in this program. And they have a lot of questions about how they go about doing that. And these are not just the large banks. We're talking about the community banks. And I really want to make sure that our community banks are able to participate because they know our local people the best. I think when we are able to include all those different institutions, we can get this process to run more smoothly and people can get their money more expeditiously.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, both to Congresswoman Chu and Congressman Chabot. We really appreciate your time. We know that you're very busy in taking care of the country. So we're going to move on and introduce our next speaker. And we are so pleased to have our next speaker, U.S. Minority Business Development Agency Director, National Director, Mr. Henry Childs II. He was appointed to serve as the National Director in September of 2018. He's the 17th National Director to serve the NVDA, which is housed at the U.S. Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C. He has placed his focus on helping the minority-owned and operated business grow and scale. He also has a strong passion in assisting women-owned businesses, investing in new industries, and minority growth equity funds. So please welcome Mr. Childs, who will talk about NVDA's roles and activity to support the small business community during and after this pandemic. Mr. Childs.
Oh, thank you, Karen. See some friends. Thank you, Chiling, for having me. I see George. I just thank you for the opportunity to present. So what I want to do is I want to give a little policy landscape, and then I want to go into what NVDA is doing to help our minority businesses. So there are the nation's minority population is 129 million. That's about 40% of the total US population. Minorities own an estimated about a third of all businesses, and they contribute about $1 trillion in revenue. So we know minority businesses are growing at an unprecedented rate. But we also know that COVID-19 is having a tremendous impact on our minority businesses. And as the only federal agency solely dedicated to helping minority businesses grow and compete globally, NVDA is on the forefront, and we're going to be advocating and fighting for minority businesses to get all the supplemental funding and all the private sector funding that's available. So let me tell you what NVDA is doing specifically. The first thing that we did is we did a data call to all of our business centers, and we asked them 3 top-line questions. Number 1, are you operational? Number 2, are you seeing an uptick in requests for assistance or information? And number 3, basically, what are your top 3 to 5 business needs? And based off that data, I reprioritized all of our 2020 NVDA funding. So I'm happy to say that we have provided additional funding for our advanced manufacturing centers, for our export centers, and for our federal procurement center. That's number 1. The second thing that we did was we are rolling out new grant opportunities. I think this is very important for your people on the phone right now. Currently, there are notice of funding opportunities for enterprising women of color. So if you're a minority woman, we're to go to www.nvda.gov to see how you can apply for that. We're rolling out funding for our inner city innovation. These are about $700,000 each to have new business centers in our inner cities. And then we're doing some other stuff with formerly incarcerated. The third thing, and I think that's why everybody's on the phone, is a $10 million we got for the CARES Act. Now, we have a good mix of this funding. Some of it is going to go to existing business centers to work with the SBA and the White House to provide technical assistance with how to get funding from SBA and other federal agencies. However, we also are going to fund some of our minority chambers, which is very important also, because we know our chambers are the ones that are really dealing with our businesses on a local level. And as Congresswoman Chu said, we want to make sure that we get this out quickly and that it's accessible. So, because we know that our minority businesses, some of them they can't go more than 30 to 60 days without liquidity. So we want to make sure that we get this access to them and this funding to them as quickly as possible. Another opportunity that I'm proud to talk about is we just launched our partnership with Amazon, and I want to thank George for solidifying that. And what this is Amazon, for the first time ever, is specifically going to work with minority businesses to basically leverage e-commerce. We know e-commerce is a $1 trillion industry, and we know that a lot of minority businesses have not gotten the technical assistance on how to do business online. So Amazon is we're doing webinars all across the country. We had our first one in San Antonio last week. We're having one this week, and I urge all of you to go to www.nvda.gov/MBTI to get information on the Amazon NVDA project. And the last thing that I really want to talk about, because all the talk so far has been on loans and basically debt, right? Debt lending. I want to talk about equity. because a lot of our businesses don't want to go in debt. They're already having, trouble with operating expenses. The last thing they want to do is incur more debt. So we're working with the largest diverse investment corporation in America to do some equity for minority businesses. And we're working to build a $1 billion wealth fund that will invest only in minority businesses. I'm very excited about this. We're in the stages of getting the equity available, and then we're going to accelerate the deployment of those funds. I think it's a game changer. I think it's exactly what we need, because we need to balance some of this debt with equity, and I'll be more than happy to walk people through how to get access to that funding. So that's all I have today, and I'm happy to take questions or whatever you want.
Thank you very much, Mr. Childs, for your steadfast support for minority-owned and operated businesses throughout the country. We truly appreciate your partnership and with ACE, especially over the years. I was looking at some of the questions here, and we didn't know if you were going to take questions or not, but since you offered it up. So the questions are coming in on the right. I don't know if you see any of those. So one of the questions is there an updated list of other additional 7A SBA lenders doing PPP that we can refer businesses to, that you know of, that are coming through? Or are you?
So, I think you have a great person representing SBA. I know Bulger, the regional director, he'll probably ask more SBA specific questions. My role is really to talk about technical assistance to access some of these SBA resources, which are great, and to talk about our nationwide network.
Thank you. And we have posted the website for our folks that are participating on here. It's on the right-hand side here. So I know you're very busy. I really appreciate you being here. We'll see you soon, hopefully in person.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you.
Take care. So now we're going to move on to our next speaker from the Small Business Administration. Please help me welcome Mr. Steve Bulger, who is the Regional SBA Administrator from the Atlantic region. Regional Administrator Bulger oversees the delivery of the agency's financial assistance, technical assistance, and government contracting activities through the Atlantic and Mid-Atlantic regions. He was appointed by President Trump and now oversees more than 100 loan, business, and outreach staff members to help small businesses grow and thrive. So today he's going to be giving us an update on the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance and the Paycheck Protection Program. Take it away.
Great, thank you. Pleasure to be with everybody this afternoon, and time is short, so I'll keep it pretty brief. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program is available to small businesses, and that program, you go online to www.sba.gov, and all the information will be there. It's an online application. You apply directly to the SBA, and two parts to that. The first is the application itself. Now, this is for a standard business disaster loan. Programs have been around for a long time, and it allows businesses to get a working capital loan from SBA up to $2 million, if that's what you need. Most small businesses need a lot less than that. But the terms are, it's a low interest rate at 3.75%. You can have up to 30 years to pay it back. No payments needed for the first year. So for those interested in that, go to www.sba.gov. The other part of that economic injury disaster loan is the advance portion. And what that is, it's a separate application right there with the other application online. You fill it out if you are requesting an advance on the loan, on that economic injury disaster loan. You can get up to $10,000 depending on the number of employees. It's basically $1,000 per employee up to a max of 10. If you have more than 10 employees, you can still only get 10,000. But that money should be going out quickly once you send in that application. And importantly, whether the application gets approved or not, that part will be forgiven. You don't have to pay that back of that initial economic injury disaster loan advance. So keep that in mind, and there's a lot of interest in those loans. The second is what the two congressional representatives talked about earlier. The Paycheck Protection Program launched on Friday. We have over 2,000 lenders across the country in every state are offering these Paycheck Protection Program loans. And we urge, as the Congress representatives mentioned, we urge you to contact your local lender. More lenders are coming on board each day. It only opened on Friday. We really only had a week to put this whole thing together. So, you know, we had to work our way through a lot of technical and other challenges, which we still are, but we're getting there. Billions of dollars have already been approved to banks who will then be dispersing that to small businesses. Once the application is sent in, SBA quickly turns it around, gives the approval to the lender to make the loan, and it should only be a matter of a week, maybe even less, before the small business can get that money directly from the lender. So that's a very quick synopsis overview of the two programs.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. We are going to save some of the questions. Hopefully you can stay on a little bit longer as we can continue with our program. And I know there's a lot of questions directed specifically to the SBA. I wanted to mention also on Wednesday, April 8th, beginning at 11 a.m. Central Time, National ACE, Gray, and the Asian American Executive Network will be hosting a detailed webinar with Mr. Robert Steiner, who's the Illinois District Director of the SBA, and the details are on the acesmallbusiness.org website under events. All right, so with that being said, we're going to take the opportunity to invite a small business owner, Andrew Chau, to talk about his personal experience dealing with the coronavirus pandemic and how he is planning to seek federal assistance to rebuild his business. Andrew is a co-founder of Boba Guys, a beverage company with 17 stores and more than 400 employees, and an ACE board member. So, Andrew.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Thanks for everyone on the call, and I love seeing some of the familiar faces. So I just want to make this quick because I know a lot of the questions, I could see them going on. I am on the board of ACE, which is how we kind of got involved. And I think the one thing I want to say is, both as a small business owner and a minority, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say concern and frustration, I know. And I think I wanted to use my couple minutes to really kind of empathize with everyone. I myself, some of you guys know that I'm actually part of the Wells Fargo banking system, and Wells Fargo yesterday announced, based on their asset cap, even they are leaving their small business owners unable to get PPP loans. So I'm with you guys. I don't have any different circumstances. And I think that pain is something that I relate to, and I see a lot of the comments. I myself, for those who are wondering, even though no matter what size, I can break up my LLCs in different pieces and I have different applications, is that you can apply for both the EIDL, which is what Steve and other people have been talking about, which is a great program. So the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the PPP. I think the question has been asked, can you apply for both? I have applied for both myself. I was definitely involved with also the acesmallbusiness.org website. So definitely we're going to put a lot of the information back onto that website. If we have any questions that we can't answer today, we're going to funnel them back there, and other amazing resources that our community is making. And constantly, actually, people don't know, on that website itself, it also has different private programs, which we haven't really talked about, that a lot of the sponsors, including some on this call, have been providing for small businesses as well. And then in general, a lot of people ask, how does the sausage get made? How does Congress on both sides, the House and Senate, pass a lot of these stimulus packages? And I think me seeing a little bit of how that works is, I think everyone has the same goal, which is to help the backbone of the economy, as I said when I went to testify in Congress. And me knowing a lot of the people here, I would say that they are working on it. I've been on some of these email strings and calls, and I want to just, say that we have to be patient, including myself. I am, if you guys see my personal side, a little concerned about my own PPP loans, but I'm in it with everyone else. And I think we're all in this together. That's where I do hope what Judy, Representative Chu said, and Representative Chabot also said about the additional stimulus. I definitely think we've been in your ear on that, having talked to a lot of the people who put these packages together. And then other things that are coming down the pike, possibly more worker protection, employee protection. Many people know I went on record and I laid off 400 employees, sadly. I'm trying to get them all back if I get the loans, but I also think about what happens to them after. And I'm sure all the small business owners on this call are concerned, not just for themselves, but also for their employees that are like family. And then lastly, there are, obviously things related to, in this case, a call for AAPI leaders and related to translations, the six languages that we translated a lot of the resources to, and also just general awareness about racism, which some people know we've been obviously talking about as well, which is in addition to all the economic issues that we've had. So just want to say on behalf of, I guess, the grassroots part of this is that, I see a lot of it, and I think we need to continue to stay strong and hold on. I'm trying to hold on as much as possible, even though if I'm bigger, I still have kind of the same proportional exposure as everybody else. And sadly, even my bank just said we were too big for them. So Wells Fargo, and they just could do what they could do. So if there's any questions related to like how we dealt with it personally, I can handle offline. But we're going to try to push a lot of the information to the website.
Thank you, Andrew. As a small business owner as well, I mean, we're wishing everybody all the best during the difficult time, and we're trying to make sure that we're answering all the questions. So I have a couple questions, especially from the chat, that are coming through that hopefully Mr. Bulger will be able to answer. So the one question that I'm interested in is there a 7A SBA lender list of banks and financial institutions?
Yes, there's a number of those lists. The easiest, fastest way to do it is do a Google search and just type in SBA 7A lenders, type in your state, and there's a bunch of different resources out there. SBA has some, but quite honestly, the Google search is faster and sometimes more comprehensive. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. Also, can a C Corp company apply for the unemployment benefits if they are the sole owner / sole proprietor?
We don't, SBA is not involved with unemployment at all, just the Paycheck Protection Program or Economic Injury Disaster Loans, both of which any small business can apply for, C Corp, S Corp, LLC. So, but in terms of unemployment, that would be more of a state issue.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I want to thank you both for sharing and giving us more clarity. To complete our briefing, I would like to introduce you to Ms. Chiling Tong, the President and CEO of National ACE. Chiling has served in various capacities, including the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency. She was also appointed recently by President Trump to serve on the President's Advisory Commission on Asian American and Pacific Islander Affairs. So Chiling will share National ACE's efforts to provide useful and timely information to the AAPI small businesses throughout the country. Chiling.
Karen, thank you so much for your leadership and your kind introduction. National ACE represents the voice of the 2 million AAPI business community and advocates for business entrepreneurs. Currently, we have about 2 million Asian business owners throughout the United States. We are very, very fortunate. We have about 40 affiliate partners throughout the United States. especially our Next Gen program led by INSO and Andrew Chau. We have a DC, Boston, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Houston chapters. I really appreciate Congressman Judy Chu and also the other CAPAC members, Congressman Chabot and NVDA National Director Charles, and also SBA Administrator Boga. Thank you so much for your time. And I just want to share with our media friends and also community and business partners, we are going to have a webinars throughout this year. So you will be able to see all the information on nationalace.org or acesmallbusiness.org. And we just used this week to put all the resources together. And we want to especially thank Bill Imada and the IW Group for their team to put this together. During this difficult time, we focus on helping AAPI business owners to overcome the business challenges and to recover negative impact on their business. So we will have a seminar through all the local Chamber of Commerce and Business Association. We are there to help you. And also we have different languages on our website. You will be able to see Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, and Thai. So thank you very much for your time, and together we'll overcome this tough time.
Sorry. Thanks, Chiling. So this concludes our official program. We would like to thank all of their speakers for their time and consideration. And I have a few more questions that we got received through the chat box. You can keep asking those questions, and if we do run out of time, we'll do our best to answer them in writing. So Mr. Bolzer, can you elaborate on the forgiveness for the PPP loan? Can it be up to a 25% change in the payroll?
Yes, good question. That's the central component that Congress put into the bill. So how it works is, for a small business, you should look back over your last 12 months, calculate your average monthly payroll, not just the salaries and wages you're paying to employees, but also benefits, healthcare benefits, retirement, family leave, anything like that, any part of a compensation package writ large, that can be added to that calculation. So you want to come up with an average monthly total for your small business, get that to the bank or the lender. They will then verify that, calculate the value of the loan based on that. What they'll do is they'll take that average monthly payroll, multiply it by 2.5, and that will be the size of your loan. The loan then gets dispersed. Once you have that, you have 8 weeks from when you get that money to start paying your employees. Even if you've laid them off, you can bring them back on. You want to pay them out of the proceeds of that loan so that at least 75% of the loan is used for payroll and benefit purposes. That's really important. If you hit 75%, the entire amount of the loan will be forgiven by SBA. We will repay the lender, we'll repay the bank 100% of the loan, and you won't owe anything. You are eligible to use those proceeds to pay rent, interest on mortgage, and also utilities, but that can't be more than 25% of the loan total if you want to get the forgiveness portion, which everybody will want. So hopefully that explains it. There is more information online that helps to clear that up.
Does it include the 1099 contract employees?
1099 is a separate issue. We're still going back and forth with the Department of Treasury working on the final rule for that. So let's just take a subcontractor, for example. If you are a contractor or you subcontract out work, you can't include the subcontractor as part of your payroll because they could also file for the Paycheck Protection Program under their own tax ID number. So it can only be your own employees and we're still waiting for final guidance, quite honestly, final guidance on the 1099 issue.
Thank you. Another question is with regards to franchise owners. Are they eligible for the EISL? You know, there's some that are 7-Eleven, McDonald's, Subway. And if you do secure the PPP, can you also be eligible for the EISL?
Yes, you are eligible for both. Franchise owners are eligible for both. There is size restrictions. If you own a lot of franchises, you can't go over 500 employees unless you're in the food service industry. We're making some exceptions because that industry's been particularly hard hit, but it's just something that you'd want to check on. But yes, in most cases, in almost all cases, franchise owners will be available, and you can apply for the economic injury disaster loans and the Paycheck Protection Program loans. The one warning I would say, though, is you can't use money from both loans to pay the same things, particularly on payroll. So if you're taking out a PPP loan, use that. Make sure to use that first to pay your employees at least 75% of that. That way, you'll get the loan forgiven. So you could use the economic injury disaster loans for payroll as well, but you got to be careful not to be paying the same bills with proceeds from those loans. That would be a no-no.
Understood. I've been reading a lot of potentially having a separate checking account when you do get your loan dollar amounts so that you can easily audit.
That's a good idea. I hadn't heard that. That's a great idea.
One of the questions also is you were talking about under 500 employees. So is that like full-time equivalent, or does that include your part-time employees?
Includes everybody. Again, some people think it should just be full-time, but right now we're everybody. If you have 500 or less, it's everybody. Full and part-time.
Okay, thank you. And then the question on the forgiveness of the loan, if the payroll is less than 75% of the loan, will this disqualify the loan forgiveness entirely or just proportionally?
Proportionally.
Wonderful. Oh, here's a good question. Can 501c6 like chambers qualify for the PPP?
That one we're still waiting. As of right now, I do not believe so. We've been asked that question a lot. We're still figuring that out with Treasury. The interim rules that came out last Thursday night, those are the interim rules for the program, and that's what we're using right now. They are working on a version 2, which I think will be out by the middle of this week. So those are some questions we're trying to get answered as soon as possible. But right now, I don't believe C6s are eligible for that, but that could change.
Excellent. Can you also address, I'm just going to keep blasting you until we try and get through as many possible since we have you here. Is it possible, we have a lot of folks in our community that our English is not their first language, so how would they be able to interact with the SBA?
We do have language services available. You want to call the our 800 customer service line at 1-800-659-2955. That's our main customer assistance center, and request if you need language assistance. We also, at a lot of our offices around the country, we have language experts fluent in many different languages. So if you're having a problem, please reach out to us and we'll try and hook you up with whoever you need to speak with.
Yes, just also for our acesmallbusiness.org website, it's been translated into 6 different languages for the Asian American community as well. I have a couple other questions. We want to talk about making sure that the small business owners and entrepreneurs don't get scammed. So are there any precautions or anything that we need to be cognizant about when we're applying?
I'll open that up to any of the other speakers we have here, but you're right, we are seeing a lot of that. And I will just say this, SBA is not going to be contacting you asking for your personal information or your credit card information or your bank information. So if anybody's claiming to be from SBA and they've got a grant or a loan for you, be very skeptical. But some of our other guests may want to comment on that too.
I'm opening it up for anybody. Nope. The other question is if you've, do you start bringing back employees if they're on unemployment? Do you start bringing them back once your loan gets funded?
You can. Yep. That would be the ideal time. Even if you're not opening your business, even if those employees are going to be sitting home because you're under a lockdown order, you can still be paying them. And that's what the program is designed to do, is keep pushing the money out to your employees even during this shutdown. So we would say as soon as you get that money, you want to have as full a payroll as you can so you can meet that 75% goal that you're going to need to hit.
And do you need to bring them all back at the same time?
Yeah, we would encourage that because we are looking at both the amount of the payroll that you're paying out and the number of employees based on what you had submitted in your average monthly payroll calculations. The number of employees is part of that information. So we would want to make sure that all those employees are getting paid, and it's not just a couple people are getting paid a lot of money to the exclusion of other workers.
Thank you. Can you advise on how the small business owners can follow up when they do apply with? Do they have to have direct contact with the bank that they're applying with?
Yes, that would be the best source. The banks are the ones handling the applications. They're the ones who will be tracking that and can give the information to the borrower.
Excellent. Can you account for new hiring?
Well, only if it's what we really want to do, because we know some businesses, just say in the last few months, they brought on a lot of people. So if you use a full year of payroll average, it's not really going to accurately reflect what's been going on up until, say, the middle of February, when the program really is calculated from. So I would say, yes, add in, if you can justify and show that you had these employees on your payroll, add in those numbers. You can't add new employees. You can't go beyond what you had for February 15th. That's the cutoff date. But you can be a little bit flexible in your calculations for having added employees in the last 3 months.
Excellent. We have some like minute unique situations, such as vacation rental properties being the only source of income, and some are in LLCs. So can you apply for the PPP on that as well, because that's where the business owner generates their income?
It's really for payroll. It's really not designed for passive real estate investments covering those costs. So I would check with the bank if there is payroll costs associated with managing that property, and there is, you can document that, then that would be eligible. But just because you're missing out on rental income, that is not what the program is designed to replace. And I can take one more question because I've got a 2 o'clock interview I've got to jump on my end.
Well, I will ask you that one more question.
Okay.
So we want to know your thoughts on this situation, that there's a belief among small business owners that the banks and the lenders are only focusing on the larger loans, not the smaller loans. They only want to lend several millions versus several thousands.
Here's what I would say to that. The banks are going to take care of their customers first. And I can understand that. If I was a customer at a bank and I had submitted for one of these applications, I would hope that my application would be submitted quickly. However, once that period is done, and I think it's a lot of the banks are reaching that already, they are going to be opening up more to new applicants who do not have a current relationship with the bank. A lot of lenders are already opening up. We're hearing stories that they are already opened up to new customers, new applications from small businesses that don't have a relationship with the bank. So you might have to do a little bit of searching to find who those lenders are. They are all over the place, and they might not be just in your city or area, because there's a lot of national lenders who are making these available on a national basis online. So we would urge everybody to stay at it and keep hitting as many of these lenders as possible. And we do think as the week goes on here, a lot more lenders will be opening up to new customers.
Thank you so much. We are so appreciative of your time, and we are sensitive to how you have to get to your next meeting. So thank you so very much. We blasted you with a lot of questions, and it's looking that everybody is so appreciative of you being candid and answering those for us.
Good luck. www.sba.gov. You can get a lot of information there. Thank you, everybody, and best of luck out there.
Excellent. So with that, we're going to close it. We're going to keep the chat open for just a little bit longer. So if you have more questions, we can answer them for you on the website, which is acesmallbusiness.org. I wanted to give you a final reminder that on April 8th at 11 a.m. Central, first of 4 webinars in the series will focus on the SBA. The questions submitted when you registered will be forwarded to the SBA prior to the webinar. And then George has linked that to the website. Again, thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you to our speakers and presenters. And we look forward to staying connected with you. Have a wonderful day and all the best to you.